Welcome to the Practice Podcast, a show created by lawyers to help lawyers in life and business without all the complicated lawyer language. Let's welcome Bast Amron founders and your hosts, Jeff Bast and Brett Amron.
Hi, Brett. How are you?
I'm well. And you, Jeff?
I'm fantastic. Second podcast of the day today for us.
Wow.
We're doing 2 in a row.
Doubleheader. How are you feeling about that?
I feel good. It's 3:18 and I'm drinking coffee. So normally I'm off coffee by now. So beware.
Watch out, Jolly.
Beware. It's anyone's game. I don't know where this could take us. So, Brett, we talked a little bit about the new year, and I'm curious what you learned in 2023. You must have learned some lessons.
There's so many.
Maybe,
I don't think we have enough time. Our guest is going to fall asleep.
Want to share one thing you learned last year or that you want to either do differently or do better or change in 2024?
Oh, God, there's so many. I'd say 2. One, which I've committed to 2024, is I am going to not fake it anymore with Spanish. I am actually going to try to learn a little bit better, to learn the language.
Wow,
yes,
I like it.
I've committed to that.
That's
I
great.
downloaded and I started on Duolingo.
Nice.
Yes.
All right.
And I would say take a deep breath.
You learned to take a deep breath.
Yes.
Did you actually learn that last year, or you learned that you did?
I mean, breathing is an involuntary, right?
Of course.
I do that all the time. But I mean, I don't mean just taking a deep breath, right? I mean, there's a lot that goes around that. But it's taking a deep breath and understanding that everything is all part of the journey, right? And that there are times that are going to be stressful. And Lord knows we've been through that, right? In the last, we're coming up on 15 years.
Crazy.
15 years. But you've got a solid foundation and a solid plan that it's going to work out.
Nice. I like it. That sounds good to me.
Are we done here? We're done.
Done like with the podcast?
Yeah, I think.
Should we talk? We have a guest sitting here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right. Our guest today is Dan Lansman. Dan Lansman has an extensive career in the marketing industry. After years as a national account manager in insurance, he founded One Touch Marketing, which specialized in email marketing and data. And the company grew significantly under his leadership. And ultimately in 2008, he successfully negotiated the sale of that company to another company, Options Media. And he served as a president and a board member there. And then in 2011, he became a partner at BMI Elite, focusing also on internet marketing, lead generation, and database marketing. That company evolved into Site Impact, where he served as CEO, and he introduced a unique product called Email Enhanced. You're going to have to explain that one. And in 2021, he sold his interest in Site Impact in a multi-million-dollar deal. He's semi-retired, but he works as a consultant and a business coach, and he's serving as a general manager and an early investor in an app called Link Me. Maybe he'll tell us about that one. He's also writing a book on real-world entrepreneurial challenges. It's called Building Without Blueprints, Navigating the Challenges of Real-World Entrepreneurship. I like that title. And Dan actively participates in organizations such as Entrepreneurs Organization, or EO, and he volunteers as a mentor for early stage businesses through the Venture Mentoring Team. Welcome, Dan. We are happy to have you.
Thanks, Jeff. Good to be here.
Welcome.
Does that, sometimes we read the bio and people are like, wow, is that me?
Yeah, it's true.
Did you have that reaction?
It's a little bit. I mean, I was there for all of it, so it's all true. It's been a long, interesting road.
It's pretty amazing what you've accomplished. And I remember when I first met you, you gave us a tour of your office. This is probably 10 years ago or 8 years ago. And there were at least a dozen businesses in that office, like that were running. And I was like, these are all yours? And you were like, yeah. And I'm like, and I looked at him and go, this is a real entrepreneur. This guy is truly an entrepreneur's entrepreneur.
Well, back that time, we had a lead generation company, an affiliate marketing company. So what that is, for those who don't know, it's we were basically a central hub.
Thank you. That's me. That was me.
For the lawyers out there listening to this podcast, we're the central hub that matched people that wanted to buy leads, that needed leads, and people that could generate leads. So you're an alarm company like ADT, and you've got a form, and you put the form out there, and we put that out to affiliates or people that drive traffic to the form. Mm-hmm. They fill out a lead, and they get paid. And what happened through that process was we met some more friends or acquaintances, and some were startups, and we did some joint ventures with people. So we would bring them into our office, we'd form this partnership, we would handle all the back end and marketing and accounting and so forth, and let them run the business. And we thought we were super smart and really entrepreneurial, and we'd have all these businesses doing different things, so we weren't pigeonholed into one thing. And some of them were good, some of them were fair, some of them were not great at all. And I know you know the story, but I was listening to a speaker, and now this term's been out there for a while, but at the time, this is probably 6-7 years ago, I'd never heard it before. And said, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And yeah, now again, I thought to myself, they're absolutely right. We're doing all this stuff that's really not helping the bottom line. And it looks good and it sounds great and it's exciting, but let's be the very best at our core business. Let's put our tech guys in that instead of building out 4 or 5 different platforms, and be the very best at one thing than being really good at that and being okay at all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So I went to this, it was an EO speaker, and I came back and I'm like, all right, we're done with all this stuff. And that tends to happen sometimes. I come back, I'm like, all right, here's what we're doing.
Right.
And
you learned something new and now you want to apply it.
Yeah, it's like my staff knows I got a hair that drives me to do something. And we gave businesses back to people. We sold things off. We closed things. And it really turned out to be the best thing we did, because then we started to really grow our business that had sort of hit a ceiling at that time. And there's one that was big enough to grow on its own, but the rest, they just weren't worth it. And so I hear people that have all these businesses, or you hear about Elon Musk of the world that have, how you can have like a Tesla and a SpaceX, and is amazing to me. But
you can't.
It's tough. You absolutely have to have the right people in the right seats for all those things, because you can't do it all. And looking back, we didn't have the right people in the right seats at that time.
I always love the main thing is to keep the main thing. But I wonder if that statement would have even meant anything to you if you didn't have so many things going on. You might have heard that before that or some other time, and then you heard that, and then suddenly it clicks, and you're like, wait a minute, what am I doing? Anytime you're working on in your case, 10 things or whatever, you're giving each of them 10%, or maybe you're allocating 20 or 30 to one, but no matter what, you can't give 100% to all these things at the same time.
And I think with all those things, when you go, you read this book or see the speaker, it's all about timing. It's very rarely do you hear somebody say something that, oh my God, that's the most amazing thing I've ever heard. I've never thought about that before. They're
usually
there. But it's hearing it the third time where it catches on, or it's just the timing where I'm really ready to really hear it, not just listen to it, but hear it. And it sparks that change that you've probably been thinking about anyway. And that's really what it is, that timing of it prompts you for what's already somewhere back in your brain to do whatever it is you're
a different person at that time. Right?
Yeah.
I would say that maybe having all of those things led you to look and focus on what the main thing was, right? A different way to look at it, right? Instead of coming back, we made a mistake. Maybe having all of those things led you to sit back and refocus and say, wait, hold on, this is our core. Let's get rid of everything else. Because if you didn't have everything else, maybe you'd be out there searching and not focusing, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It makes you sure. It's like, this is the woman I want to be with. This is
right. This is the business. This is what we're good at. We've tried that. We're not good at that. Let's focus on this. It's not that dissimilar to a lot of lawyers. That have small practices that sometimes we call them door lawyers, and because they have to take anything that comes in the door. They don't really focus in a particular area. They may be a good technical lawyer, but they're not known in any particular area or niche, right? Because they just don't focus. And it's just not that dissimilar to what you're talking about.
I think there's value in learning what not to do, what you don't want to do or whatever. Like my daughter went to an art school in high school. She studied architecture for 4 years or 3 years. And at the end of 3 years, she's like, I don't want to be an architect. And I thought, you know what? Thank God she learned that at that point. You might have spent 6 more years grad school and all the other things and then learn what you don't want to do. And so there's value in learning what you don't want to do.
100%. Yeah. Imagine your first year and working as an architect after all that. You realize, I need to figure something else out.
Exactly. So Anyway, all right. So you started all that. You started Site Impact, or did you start Site Impact, or you joined it?
I didn't.
early?
I joined my old sales manager at my prior company. He had left. And when Options Media had run its course, I was going to leave and figure something else out, and happened to meet up with him, and we always worked well together. And he was open not quite a year and starting up, and we decided it would, let's do it together. Let's figure out a partnership and go forward. And I knew we always worked well together, knew we'd be a good team, and it really worked out great. And it's always easier the second time.
Oh, yeah.
Every
right.
You pay all the dummy taxes the first time around, and then it's significantly easier the second time.
It's not that it's easier, it's that you're better at it. It's kind of like parenting.
Fair.
Like with the second kid, it's a little easier. It's not that the kid's easier. I'm just a better parent. I'm just much better at this.
Well, right. Or you just stop caring.
Some combination. Combination of
pacifiers on the floor.
Yeah, whatever.
3-second rule.
Right, exactly.
Right. The first child, it's a 3-second rule. The second child's 15-second. The third child's like just eventually, whatever you find it, you pick it up. Right. Exactly.
You rub some dirt on it. Okay.
I'm a testament to that because I'm the fourth kid, and I basically just did whatever I wanted. Like they were done by then. They were like, oh, whatever. He'll be fine. He'll figure it out.
And you did.
Yeah, I mean,
I did.
Due dates on packages doesn't matter, Jeff. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter how long it's been in the fridge. I can eat anything. You know what I mean? So that's, to me, that's the fourth kid left to his own devices.
What doesn't kill me makes me stronger.
Exactly.
That is my
hungry now.
my approach.
Yeah,
to
there's
life.
something in the refrigerator. So hey, looks like food.
So you exited, and I'm curious about. We always hear about entrepreneurial exits, and yours was a successful one. You did well. But that business is still out there, and I don't know if it's growing or how it's doing. I'm just curious what that's like for you when you step away from a business and you still get to see it grow or do whatever it's doing. Is there any sort of, do you have seller's remorse or anything like that, emotions that follow that?
Well, going back to the second time is better. When I sold One Touch Marketing to Options Media, and that didn't go so well. It's a whole different set of circumstances, and I was motivated to do something.
Meaning the sale didn't go so well?
The sale didn't go so well.
For the buyer, for the sale? You mean for?
Well, for me, the
just
seller.
In general, okay.
Because it was a little bit of cash, it was a lot of stock, and I think everyone went into it with best of intentions and everything. We worked hard and tried, it just didn't really work out. It was a public company. And looking back, I made a lot of mistakes, but I just
learned.
Didn't know.
Yeah, you learned, yeah.
And then the second time, which was 2 years ago, it was a matter of, for me, the timing was right and valuations were high and the company was doing well. We're still growing. And so we went about doing it we thought was the right way. We hired the right attorney. We put together our financials in the data room and got our contracts together. And we went through the process, which is something a lot of businesses don't do. So often I hear from people like, I wasn't really thinking about selling, but this company came along and they made me an offer. And then you go ahead and you do it. And look, it can be great, but it's generally not where you get your best valuation.
Right.
So we do this, we hire the banker, and they put together the process, and the bid goes out, and they have their system, and we start doing pitches, and we get about halfway through that process, and then this was in 2020, and then COVID hits. So that kind of killed that process.
The momentum. But even just going through the process, I imagine that process probably teaches you a lot about your business, the blind spots, things like that.
Sure. And it also, I was always surprised by the questions some of these private equity guys asked. And when at the first meeting or two, I'm in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, why are they asking this question? Why are they focused on this topic? Why is they pressing down this road? That's not really that important. And then I realized, this guy went to Stanford, this guy went to Harvard, this guy went to Yale. Right. And I'm like, maybe these guys do know something. But I really started putting some thought into their questions. And I'm like, you know what? They're right. This is something I need to have more thought into. And this is a blind spot of the business and our sales, whatever it was they're digging into. So it was definitely helpful. And then we went out again after recovering from COVID. And it was, again, most of that work was already done.
When you started the business, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs think this way, were you thinking of eventually building it for an exit? Or you didn't even think that way until at some point in time when you said, maybe it's time to sell?
I wasn't thinking that way up front. I mean, it's always in the back of your mind that this could be a thing after going through an exit once, but really it's like, okay, I need to support my family.
Make money.
Make money.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I need to get this off the ground. I need to make sure this works. And I just didn't have that forethought of like, okay, we're going to structure this way. We're going to write these kind of contracts because that'll look better. And a lot of that's fixable down the road. I mean, there's some things that are bigger fixes than others. But when we really started to make the decision and started to hire the right people and go down that road and creating the data room, there were definitely things we had to fix. We changed some of our contracts. We buttoned up some loose ends we didn't have. And it takes time. So I tell people that want to go down this road of selling their company, like, you really have to give yourself a year minimum. If you want to do it right, it is a year and probably longer. It can be shorter, but quicker is not always better.
Well, and that's from some time when you have the books and records and everything in order, because that in and of itself, sometimes they're creating the books, not creating the books, but creating the reporting that's going to be necessary.
And we were a pretty well buttoned up company at that time with systems and processes and accounting and all that and audited financials. And so those are things, that look, it's the more buttoned up you are, the more comfortable your buyer is. And the more comfortable your buyer is, the more they're willing to pay you.
Yeah.
Well, and I love the fact that you guys went out and hired consultants, lawyers, consultants that, I mean, a lot of small business entrepreneurs, I'm selling a business. I know my business. I don't, you know your business, but you don't know how to sell your business. Right. So I love the fact that you guys did that, because that, to me, number one, is going to get you guys the information you need. But number two, I think it's going to tell the outside world or prospective buyers, well, these guys are legit and they know what they're doing, right?
Exactly. It gives everyone comfort. Even you as the seller, like you just said it, the process makes you feel comfortable that you got the right value, the right deal. But I agree, it certainly lends a little bit of a certain level of credibility.
Sure.
And I think a lot of the ones that pass on it say, I don't want to pay whatever 3% is. I don't know what the typical fee is these days, but 3%. And it's like, look, if they're going to bring in 20% more and take 3%, you're better off, or 10% more, 4% more, you're better off.
It's the easiest commission you'll pay, because not only are they going to find more people for, to present to you, but the prep work they put us through of telling the story of your company. And there was a dip here and there's a loss there. And why was this? And let's frame the story honestly of what it is and how it is. But there's a way to frame a story of how something happened. I have to tell you guys that. So like that process was really valuable. And thinking through these things, and they know what buyers want to see and how to see it, that I don't think that way. So if they're not going to get you 3 to 4% more on your deal, then you hired the wrong people.
Right.
Yeah.
And how was that process? I mean, did you interview different consultants? Because obviously it's the same thing as hiring a lawyer. A lot of times you want to talk to a lawyer. There's got to be a fit personality-wise and thought process. So did you go through that? I mean, or was it just, hey, we found the right person for our industry? Tell us a little bit about that.
We interviewed lawyers and we interviewed accountants, we interviewed the brokers. But for us, it was a combination of, it was really helpful for me. The one we ended up going with they knew our business. And just them understanding, because it's not a cut and dry business for what we did. It's a little bit unique. And the questions they asked and the people they knew and having worked in that space before, in my mind, gave them a huge leg up. They knew the buyers for that space. I think all these guys know the big people out there, and it's not that unique. But not having, versus we talked to someone that was a good banker, a good broker, but started asking me, like, for you guys lawyers, like, so how do you bill? And how do you get your clients? And it's like starting from the very ground up was just, it's going to take too long to get this person up to speed where they can intelligently talk on our behalf. So for us, having industry experience, we thought was really important. And also, I don't want to be the smallest
of their clients.
Right. And I also don't want to be the biggest.
Correct. Right,
so it's being in that sweet spot where I'm important to them, but not
like bigger than anything
not like,
they've ever done. Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I think that's certainly true for a lawyer, a law firm, selecting a lawyer or a law firm, but it's so much a fit. I just had this conversation with a client the other day, referring them to another lawyer, and they were like, I don't know, they didn't like the way the lawyer talked to them. And I said, you know what, you need to be comfortable with them. And if you're not comfortable with the way they're talking to you, then let's find you somebody else. Like there are a lot of lawyers out there. So I think a lot of people just don't get that. They're so unfamiliar with that, the idea of hiring a lawyer, and same thing, with hiring a banker, that they go with whoever somebody recommends, or no one at all.
It's tough hiring lawyers because in this case, maybe you didn't like the way that person spoke to you, but they could be perfect for the job. And so when you're hiring somebody where you're not an expert in that field, it is tricky. And I've been on the other side of that, on the side of like, is this the right person for us? And I've hired some. Fortunately, I had one lawyer who did our business almost the whole time, but occasionally we had to hire different people, and sometimes they worked out great, and sometimes they didn't.
As a business owner who hires lawyers, are there any sort of do's or don'ts? Any advice you would give to lawyers out there? Because you're the client, you're a proverbial client. And if there is something that
I think the things that I look for is one, I want somebody with a cool head. When it's a case against somebody, sometimes it's contracts litigation and stuff like that. But if there's some negotiating, I really want someone with a cool head that will lower the temperature in the room and help get things resolved. And so that's a personality
found him right
trait.
Here. Brett Amron. Go ahead.
And I look for, and someone that takes an interest in what we're doing. And I'll give you an example. Back when I was in the lead gen business, I won't get too deep in the weeds of the story, but we had a client that we were doing great business with, and things were picking up, and they said, we really need you to do more. We want more. Quality is great. So we thought it through, and long story short, we said, okay, we can do this for you, but we need to be your exclusive vendor, and and they wanted higher qualified leads. So we literally went out, we started a separate business for this, a subsidiary, and started a call center, and really went all in into doing this for them. Long story short, we find out months later that they did the same deal with 3 other lead generators. And because 3 of us were going out in the market, none of us were able to perform the way we otherwise could. And we had to hire a lawyer out of state because they were in Utah. And we're talking to them, and they just kind of like got to matter of fact, okay, you're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and blah, blah, and so on and so forth. And we're about done. And I'm like, guys, I just need to let you know that I want you to understand that we were really wronged here. Like, we spent all this money. We hired 20 people. We signed a lease. We bought furniture. We did a phone system. We did all these things exclusively for this client based on this contract. And exclusivity was the core of it. Without the exclusivity, we knew it never would have worked. Right. And they intentionally went and breached. They didn't care. They just wanted more leads, and they breached. And I thought it was important for them to know that. Maybe it didn't make a difference to them. They're going to go and, do whatever they were going to do regardless. But it was important to me that they knew this wasn't, there's so many frivolous lawsuits. Sure. So many people, I'm going to sue and you're going to sue and blah, blah. Like, this wasn't that. This was a case where we were really wronged. We spent a lot of money for it. And because of their breach, it didn't work. And now I'm firing 20 people. And I've got this furniture I don't need and this lease I need to try and get out of. Like, it was, it was far from frivolous. And these attorneys, it wasn't important.
If they cared, they didn't show you that they cared.
Correct.
And you wanted someone to support your sense of injustice. Like, correct. You wanted someone you want to be heard. We've had this is a conversation we have all the time. Some clients want to be heard. They want to be heard by their lawyer, but they, and that's the lawyer's job, is to go to court and speak for them, allow you to be heard in a way. But apathy is, I think, a common, problem for lawyers that they just kind of
that's another case, and I need to file this motion and do. Yeah, and like I said, maybe it wouldn't have changed what they were going to do, but
they could at least listen to you
and know where we're coming from and why we're doing what we're doing.
Show it's important, right?
Yeah.
Look, our job as lawyers, like you said, turn down the temperature. Our job is to take the emotion out of it, right? We come to these things because you have been involved in something and now you have these feelings, you're the client. And our job is not, we weren't there, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't have any personal stake in it other than we're getting paid and we're getting hired. Mm-hmm. And that's the point, right? Is so that we can tell you what the law says, help give you advice and help you to make a decision based upon facts that may be clouded, right, by emotion. And so, but sometimes lawyers, it goes too far and they don't have the understanding and sort of the emotional tie to sit there with the client and say, please tell me. I want to hear your story. Yes, that's important to me. And I'm going to take that. And that's how I'm going to try to resolve this in your favor. And I understand your view and I get it.
And understanding what it means.
Right. What it means to you.
And that's kind of like, I think that's why I think we're better litigators, honestly, because we have a sense of, we want to understand the context. Like you have a fight with this customer. Okay. What does it mean? Like if this is one of your customers, how much of their business do you account for? And do you want to continue to do, like we've had clients, that come to us that want to sue somebody, but they think they're going to continue to do business with them after. And we're like, no, this is pretty much the end of when we file that lawsuit, that's the end of this relationship. And like that, and it's not, maybe it's not their fault. It's they just hadn't really thought through all the effects or the context and what it means. Can they pay? Do you want to just put them out of business? Is that your objective? Sometimes that is. And they're not always
it's the
best
principle
cases.
of it.
Yeah, the principle of it.
But yeah, I mean, there's been times, example, I've been on the other side of it too, where over principle, I didn't want to settle.
Right.
And I thought it was grossly unfair and I can't believe this person's doing this and they're wrong. And they sued for $10,000 and which was exactly our deductible on our insurance. And I didn't want to settle. I'm like, I can't believe we're going to pay this person for this claim. And my attorney at the time, very level-headed, is like, it's not worth it. Just pay it. It's the cost of doing business. And it's your time, your trouble, the money, blah, blah. And I'm like, but it's wrong. And it sets the wrong precedent. It's not worth it.
You're never going to be happy to litigate. Even if you win, you're not going to be happy.
But I would have felt better, I think. I still think I would.
And I'm here to tell you that we brought you into this podcast today.
To tell you that.
Just to tell you that you would not have been happy.
All right. So
when clients come in, we always talk about this, right? When clients come in and say it's the principle of it. Like, okay, let me change the
charge more
extra zero on that retainer. Because at some point in time, you're going to have the feeling of, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. Or it is. And when you continuously write those checks for the lawyers, passing the $10,000 or whatever it is you would be able to pay and be done, our view is, listen, there's times when you have to litigate. I mean, you just have to, right? Either you get sued or there's nothing left to do but sue. But if there's a way to avoid it and try to resolve it, then great, because you're not in the business of litigating, right? You're in the business of whatever your business is, and that's how you're going to make money.
And my lawyer at the time, he said, my fee's going to be $10,000.
Yeah.
And
you still wanted, and you still wanted to do it.
Right.
Yeah. I still want, it was so.
It's irrational thinking.
And you know what got me? I'll tell you what really got me. One of the things that got me is the short version of what happened was an employee. We had tried
Don't violate any, confidentiality.
Yeah.
No,
give you some advice.
We tried something.
We'll give you some advice on the podcast here. Yeah.
We tried something and it didn't work. And we had 2 people that were going to lay off because this thing we tested wasn't going to go forward. So we said, okay, to the manager, just lay these people off. They're both new to the company. And he goes, do that. One of them was on jury duty. So waits till the person got back from jury duty and then lay them both off. So the one that was on jury duty said they were discriminated against. We fired them because they took jury duty, even though we've had, I don't know how many people go on jury duty all the time. And the thing that got me is there was an exchange between the lawyers and he forwarded me something and said, here's where we're at. And I scrolled down and I started reading and the ex-employee's lawyer said something like, what our case lacks in merit, we have timing on our side. Ugh. And I'm like, it's just enough of a reason for us to get something from you.
Right.
And, you start a business and you build and you grow and people take advantage. And that's what stung.
Right. Sometimes you have to fight on principle because you're sending a message to somebody else, either customers or other employees or something like, if an employee violates a non-compete, even though, there's, maybe they didn't really cause harm, sometimes you have to make an example of them so that the next person doesn't take that approach. But usually it's not economically beneficial.
Hey, talk me out of it.
Yeah, good.
So let's talk about what Dan is doing now in this quote unquote semi-retirement. I mean, the list of things that he's doing.
Yeah, I'm certainly not ready to retire. And I like keeping busy and having a hand in in a few things. And so I'm writing this book, Building Without Blueprints. And the thought behind it is I talk to a lot of people who, I wish I started a business. I had this idea for a business, or younger people I'm scared to try or learn and do. And the thought behind it is like, you don't have all the answers when you start, and that's okay. You don't need to know everything. The days of doing research, writing a business plan, and then executing that plan are long gone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not realistic anymore. And a lot of it is trial and error, and fail fast and fix, and fail fast and fix. And so I think that's something that holds a lot of people back from trying. And, people have side gigs now where they can do at the same time as their full-time job. But I think that this book can hopefully encourage that early stage entrepreneur or that person who's thinking about starting a business that it's okay to not know everything. It's okay to start, jump in. Now, it's not to say you can't have a well thought out plan and you can just willy-nilly do this, but there's somewhere in a happy medium where I have a good business idea.
Right. I
think I can do this, and you got to do a lot of learning as you go.
Right. It's kind of like the building the airplane in the air type thing. But right. Sometimes if you could suffer from paralysis analysis. You can there's always a million reasons not to do the thing that you're talking about, starting the business or whatever. And especially like us, we are trained to look for problems. Like that's our, as a lawyer, us meaning Brett and I, it's our job to find problems and solve problems. And so someone comes to me with a proposal, I can find a dozen risks. But I think, and a true entrepreneur like you in your book, you're like, well, I'll deal with the risks when they come up. If I'm just focused on the risks, I'll never focus on the rewards.
Yeah. So it's timing. The timing isn't right. This isn't good.
There's always an excuse.
Just had a kid. I just am about to get married. There's always a reason not to.
Well, people ask me, like when I started my firm, and I'm sure the same for you, Brett, I started getting questions. What about this? What about this? And I was like, I hadn't really thought of those things. And I don't know if it was ignorance or just optimism that I was just like, failure wasn't even on the horizon. What if this goes wrong or that goes wrong? Those things never even entered my mind. And I don't know if that's optimism or ignorance, but it doesn't really matter. It's entrepreneurialism, and that's part of what it is.
Ignorance. I mean, listen, you have a plan or a general direction and a plan and an idea. No, but it's an idea, right? You had an idea, you had a general direction, you had a general plan like I did.
Right.
And you'll fill in the gaps as you go.
Right.
And some of it was some mistakes were made along the way, but nothing fatal because it was with each decision there was thought process, right? And you figure it out.
For you two, I'm a good lawyer. I'm confident in my ability to be a lawyer and get clients. But then you had to figure out the business side. Right. And that's a whole other skill set.
Nobody tells you how to do.
You don't learn that at all.
You're right.
You can learn, we have 3 different law firms between the two of us, or 4, if we include like internships and stuff. And we never saw a piece of that, ever,
And being a lawyer, I think is one thing, but that goes for just about everybody. I'm a good graphic designer. I'm really great at designing, but I don't know anything about accounting. I don't know anything about marketing or where I get my bank account and all those things. Obviously, how to get it, hire employees, all that stuff.
Yeah. Human resources and dealing with that. I mean, all of that stuff. There's things even today. There's things that we're like, wait, what? Okay, we got to deal with it. And so But you're right. There is a certain mindset that people have to get over. And I was just talking to actually somebody about this. Like fear is an emotion. It is not reality. It is an emotion. Danger, right, is real. And then you have to assess the danger and the level of the danger.
Oh, I like that.
To get around that. But the fear is just an emotion, right? So
agreed.
If you can, and how do you get over fear? And that is you can plan. You can educate yourself to get through the danger and all this stuff. So that's kind of how I've tried to do it. I think we've tried to do it is like sit down and say, okay, well, what's the challenge in front of us? What's the issue? And we just try to work through it. But you can't know everything. You can't.
No. But
nor should you want to.
Yes.
Right? True. That's part of the journey and the process. If you could figure it out at the end, then day one would be the day you opened it, and day 2 would be the day you'd sell it. Mm-hmm. Right? Because it's perfect. Everything is right.
I have all the problems.
I have this perfect business that I built on day 1. Mm-hmm. Now I can sell it on day 2. Right?
Yeah.
That it takes time to go through the different machinations of it and figure it out to get to a point. It's not going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect.
If you can get to that point, then someone's probably already done it anyways. Like if you get to where you've identified all the blind spots and all the problems and solved everything, well, then your issue is not so novel.
I mean, you mentioned Elon Musk, right? I would imagine even the great Elon Musk would say that none of his companies are perfect.
Sure. Well, yeah.
Maybe
no company.
Maybe his ideas, maybe his brain power, maybe those are perfect, but maybe not. His companies are not, they're not, right? There's things that have to be addressed all the time.
Good stuff, man. I love this. Now, Dan, we haven't even scratched the surface with you. We're gonna have to bring you back for sure.
All right.
May I, Brett? Are you okay with that? Can
I am.
Bring Dan back?
Yeah.
All right. Just want to make sure we have approval. It's unanimous.
Okay.
We're bringing you back.
I know this isn't all that
Nelson, we
lawyerly,
should ask
but
Nelson. If you enjoyed this episode, please show us some gratitude by giving us a 5-star review and sharing the show with your friends and family. Subscribe and save, and we'll see you next time. Subscribe and save. That's like
Costco?
I'm on Amazon.
What are we doing?
Subscribe and save. Well, subscribe and save us. Save us from the agony of not having many subscribers.
Oh, well done, Jeffrey.
See you next time.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks,
Dan.
guys.
Nelson, thank
Enjoyed
you.
it.
For more information on this show and other resources, visit fastamron.com and connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram @FastAmron.